being really concerned with like, what are other people going to think on LinkedIn? What are other people perceiving about this? And I wish kind of from day one that that was just not an influence. And, if I could go back, I think it would be with happiness, because really all like the feedback that I've received has been very positive, very, very positive. And so much of the time, like I often get messages from people I know just saying like, hey, this is so awesome. This is really neat. Like, good for you for doing that. And that's the continual theme time and time again. And it's so interesting because our limiting beliefs about what we think we can do hold us back so much, as well as our fear over what other people are thinking. And it makes you realize that no one's really thinking about us as much as we think that they are. So if I could go back, it would be that the realization that it's people are here to support you. They're not here to just kind of rip apart your business from day one.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Regin, and today we're joined by Madeline Springle. Madeline is a certified human resources professional and a PhD student in industrial organizational psychology. She's the founder of Master Your Interview coaching program that helps professionals overcome imposter syndrome and crush their job interviews with confidence. Madeline blends science-backed strategies with real-world insights to help candidates show up authentically, speak clearly under pressure, and finally land the roles that they deserve. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Madeline.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing more about this.
Well, it's a pleasure. Could you tell me a little bit more about what got you into coaching? What inspired you to become a job interview coach?
So I am currently, as you mentioned, a PhD student in industrial organizational psychology, which is basically the science of work and how do we make the workplace better. And so I've been researching interviews for the past 4 years for both my master's and then currently now. And I've realized as I've been reading articles and just in that academic sphere that so much of what we know about interviews doesn't end up in the job candidate's hands. And this stemmed specifically with asynchronous video interviews, which are one-way video interviews. They're on demand. There's no one behind the camera. And those types of interviews really stress candidates out. If you go on Reddit, you can see how much hate they get. And that was the focus of my master's research, was looking at AVIs, we call them for short, and looking specifically at background cues and the impact that that has on candidate evaluations. And it kind of triggered something in my mind of, okay, there's a problem here that clearly we know there's been a lot of research done on this topic, but candidates have such a negative perception of them. So this was the foundation for my goal in starting Master Your Interview, was to really actually help job candidates using the knowledge and experience that I've learned throughout my academic experience.
So on your research, you found there was a need to help these candidates, especially with the job interview process. We were talking earlier and you mentioned that you've been doing this for 6 months. You have some clients now already. How does your journey look like these last 6 months starting your own coaching business?
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting. I think it's crazy how far you can come in 6 months, just my own mindset wise. So October 2024 was when I started investing in some business coaching, which we can talk about later. But that was when I would say I founded Master Your Interview, and that process till now has just shifted for me in terms of I see myself as an entrepreneur. This is what I definitely want to do after I finish grad school. And that journey's been very up and down. So I would say the biggest hurdle that I've really tried to work through is the perception or the fear maybe that other people might have if I'm posting content on LinkedIn or just saying I'm a job interview coach, this is what I really want to do. And that fear of maybe other people I know thinking like, oh, you're just a grad student, how could you coach someone, that kind of thing. And so whereas now having paid clients and different paid partnerships I have has really increased my confidence in knowing that there's some value here. People are willing to pay for it. And this is something I really, really enjoy doing. And so the beginning of Master Your Interview just started with making a YouTube channel. So going back to that gap between the research versus what candidates are actually experiencing with their asynchronous video interviews, I started posting interview content on YouTube, just kind of strategies, preparation, what do you need to know? And something I really found that's resonated with people is just talking about interview anxiety. Like, how can you actually mitigate it? What does it look like? What's the purpose of it? And so with the YouTube channel, this actually led to a paid partnership with a company called interviewing.com. And so they're a mock interview prep company based in the US. And I create content for them that they post on their social media channels. That was kind of my first paid element of Master Your Interview. And we have an ongoing collaboration with lots of really exciting opportunities coming up. And then the foundation of my program is 6-week interview coaching one-on-one with, I target more early career professionals. So as we were saying before, it's more people who are receiving interview offers, but they're struggling with getting the job. And I think the reason why I like that niche specifically is because I only really want to focus on the interview element. Like, I'm not as maybe like energized by resume crafting or salary negotiation, but the interview itself, it is such a gatekeeper to landing the job. And I find it fascinating because every single job, when you think about it, will have an interview. And so it's something that almost everyone in the world has to be able to do well if they want to land a job. And that pressure alone and the stakes, I think, can just ruin candidates mentally, where they've got the qualifications, they've got the skills, the experience, and it's like, why does the pressure of this environment just cause us to mind blank all of these different pieces? So yeah, and then other pieces over the past 6 months is I've been really developing my LinkedIn presence. So that was something that my business coach helped to focus, especially for the lead generation, was establishing that credibility, growing the content, using that as lead generation. And that in itself was such a learning process of just thinking, like, is this valuable? Am I just speaking to the void? Sometimes content will do really well, sometimes it won't. And it's trying to analyze that and think, is it me? Is it the algorithm? Is it just the time of day? And I would say also just mentally separating the posting on LinkedIn from, let's say, like, not to be dramatic, but like my worth as a person. Like, this is my business. This is, something I have to do if I want to grow. And even if it's really uncomfortable for me, I know I need to do this. And if it doesn't do well, that's not reflective of who I am. Something might be missing here. So that's what I've been doing mainly for lead generation, as well as hosting quarterly webinars. So that's been really good for kind of having something to look forward to, gaining some traction, booking sales calls, and then converting that to clients as well.
You just mentioned webinars. When it comes to these webinars, how do you get people to register there? Is it you're posting this on LinkedIn and then whoever sees it, right, registers for the event, applies there? Or is there like an email list of people, like your leads, or is there more, are you potentially running ads? How are you getting people to come into the webinar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So mainly through LinkedIn content. So I'll always have a blurb at the end about, this is just a little snippet of what we're going to cover in the upcoming webinar. I'll post that as comments for everything, because they also say that posting links in the actual LinkedIn content doesn't help it do as well versus posting it in the comment section. But you mentioned building kind of the email element of that, and that is something I've been working on as well, is using Kit, that the platform that a lot of people use to build their newsletters, having a landing page there and then directing people to there, having them sign up. And then that's been building my newsletter. And so I would say also people sign up for the webinar via previous webinar newsletter chains. And then also just word of mouth and referrals. So even, for example, someone saw one of my ads, not ads, I guess posts would be better to say, advertising my webinar, and they're like, oh, this is fantastic. So they spread it to a bunch of people in their network at the university and across Canada where I live. And so that was helpful as well, just for spreading it to more students. People are really keen. And I think you're more likely to sign up when it comes from someone you know versus maybe a post on LinkedIn that's a little bit further away from you.
And is there a specific target audience that you typically like to work with?
I've been dabbling with different niches and thinking like, what is the ideal client? And what I've found, at least who I currently work with, is they're early career professionals who either just graduated, maybe currently in their master's, and probably max 5 to 8 years of experience, because I think they don't have a ton of experience on their resume. And so they've got to figure out how they're going to frame what they do have. But they do have experience in the sense of they're not maybe first year undergrad students. So it's kind of a nice sweet spot in there. And then in terms of ideal clients, I do kind of like what I was saying before, was it's great if they've had some interviewing experience so they know what went well, what wasn't working for them, and they're in that interview hunting phase. So sometimes they might be in a current role and not actively job hunting, whereas if they've got interviews coming along throughout our 6 weeks, that's fantastic because we can reflect on the recent interview, debrief what went well, implement homework strategies, that kind of thing. So yeah, and then I have found what's interesting is most of my clients have been women, and so I haven't necessarily like targeted them specifically, but I think that's just maybe who's attracted to like what I'm offering. And so I think there's an element there maybe where just the mindset piece can sometimes, it's hard for everyone, but I wonder sometimes if maybe women struggle a little bit more with some of the things I'm specifically targeting.
I think that's only women.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of like in a similar way has
Hmm.
similar struggles. And when you mentioned this, I believe that you're not going after a specific subset of early professionals or even graduate students. I guess you're like on a broader side, as long as they're on the early career and or even they're graduating, but they need help with the interview, then they can just come to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of part of the catch-22 is like how much do you niche down? Because I was thinking, should I go into a specific industry more so, like interviews for engineers, software, tech, marketing, that kind of thing. But again, it's kind of like what you're saying is like everyone does struggle with the same interview elements across these different spheres. So for
Yeah.
right now, I like targeting more early career professionals just on the interview side of coaching.
Yeah, and niching down that has the benefit of niching down is mostly seen in marketing. It gets very easy to market when your audience is very broad, but it's fixed because some people are gonna just thinking about when they read the copy of the comment or the comment on LinkedIn or like the post on LinkedIn, does it speak directly to them or does it speak to them but not in a direct way? So it is like the only thing I feel that has an advantage is niching down is especially has to do with marketing and maybe like streamlining operations to a certain degree as well. I wanted to ask, do you have any goals, like once you finish your studies as well, are you thinking of like moving full time to this coaching business? Any goals on how that looks like 1 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have goals and kind of I've got like them on a monthly basis, quarterly, and a yearly basis. But specifically, what you were asking is afterwards, do I want to make this into my full-time career? The answer is yes. And I would say that's been something that I've reflected on over the past 6 months of I think this is something viable career-wise that I really enjoy doing. I get so much meaning out of it. And I just see this as once the engine's started, it'll just keep growing. And so my next phase of my business eventually will be to do more group coaching because that's something I'm struggling with right now is I love the one-on-one and I think there's so much value in that, but it's not scalable. And so it's how do you balance that of growing it, also maximizing my time. So that's something that I'd like to phase into. And then as well, I'd love to launch more low ticket digital courses. So specifically, an asynchronous video interview one that's more of a prep course or a crash course if someone has an AVI coming up. And often you have to do these within, say, like 48 hours, 72 hours. And so something that they could just really digest if they're struggling with not even just the mindset pieces of one-way video interviews where there's no interviewer there, how do you handle that? But also just some of the actual response prep because they're used in a very specific context of the interview cycle.
Thanks for sharing that. I really like the goals that you have lined up. I really like that you have it broken down into monthly, quarterly.
Yeah.
I think that is like there's a very strong disciplined mindset behind that. And group coaching, yeah, definitely more scalable than one-on-one. And when we think about one-on-one, generally your time becomes your bottleneck, which means at a certain point you have to hire other coaches to take on
Yeah.
these coaching sessions, which is kind of like what we focus on my consulting offer that helped us scale at a certain point because we were
Okay.
also doing one-on-one.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also had like courses on my consulting offer that we included as part of their offer and group coaching. I think, yeah, we also at some point we also started group coaching, but we initially were focused on one-on-one, and we managed to scale that way as well. I wanted to ask you, when it comes to investments, has there been any like coaching programs, masterminds, communities, business coaches that you found that have been very valuable in you growing your coaching business for this period that you've been working on it?
So I worked with a business coach for the past 6 months named Daniel Finley. He's in the UK. And that was great to start my business from scratch, figure out who am I going to target, what am I even offering, building the entire LinkedIn side of things, posting the content. And we would meet bi-weekly and just really kind of move forward with webinars or masterclasses, make a plan for the lead magnet, growing the newsletter, all of those different things. And I think that really helped grow my business to a place that was making money. And if I didn't have that investment, I don't think it would nearly be as far along as it is. And I know you talk about this with other coaches as well, and everyone highlights just the importance of like investing in yourself and keeping yourself accountable and growing as well. And I think there's so much to be said there. I think right now, currently, I'm thinking what would the next stage be for coaching for myself, and I'm not certain yet. I'm working through Dickey and Cole's low ticket launch pad for building a low ticket launch pad, which has been fantastic. And I do like that asynchronous work as well, where it's like I can work on it on my own time. So I'm working through a couple of courses there. But yeah, I mean, I think the other huge benefit of just because it's not just a money investment, but it's also a time investment. And it's if you want it to work, you have to invest the time and the money knowing that it might not pay off. That's why entrepreneurship is a risk. It might not pay off. But I think that investing in coaching for yourself helps to change your mindset to realize I'm worth investing in. And so that was kind of the case for me was like, this is something I want to invest in myself, even if it doesn't pay off. You never know. Yeah, so I'd say that would be like the main thing that really that I would say as my investment, and it was yeah fantastic, and I think it's something I'd continue to do moving forward, and it's just that balance of what do I actually need right now.
I really like what you said when you said I'm worth investing in. What that is a completely different mindset. Yeah, you're seeing it from a perspective of like how much you value yourself, and also like one of the things that I noticed in the podcast interviewing a lot of coaches is it's difficult to have a client believe in your coaching if you don't believe in being coached by others as well. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that is really a good investment. And even on our research paper that we did, I'll send that to you later. You'll find that one of the investments that had the highest return on investment was actually investing on another coach,
Mm,
as opposed to one of the kind of like the worst investments, they do have their own value, but it's just like in terms of like how much revenue coaches were able to generate from this type of investment, this was the one that had the lowest return on investment, and it was certifications. And yeah, having certifications is like might be important for you as a coach, but in order to grow your business, if you're thinking that investing thousands of dollars in a certification is going to help you get more clients that way, then it might not be the right way to think about it. It might just be good for credibility at some degree, but I don't think like that is a very good investment.
This is such a good point. Just adding on to this is such a good point because I think that's probably my biggest thing I took away from my coaching with Daniel was the realization that I love to hide behind certifications and think like, okay, if I get one more skill, then I'll feel ready and, I'll finally know what I'm doing and everything. And I think as well, it's like the realization that you're never going to feel ready. And if you are, they say it's too late. And it's battling my own imposter syndrome of feeling like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. But then I take a big picture step back and it's like, well, everyone's trying to figure everything out. And I do know what I'm doing. And there is elements of where we're continuously learning. But at the same time, it's the acceptance that the certifications are probably not going to project you as far as you'd like, just exactly what you were saying there.
Yeah, and I think kind of like the certifications are the way that we're trained into thinking that this, like we have to have some sort of degree to do a certain thing and to share a certain value, but actually the value that you are able to share is already in you as a coach based on your experience. For example, a lot of coaches that I've interviewed do help people in a way that they wish they were helped at a certain point in their career. So they're not helping everybody. So it's not like their coaching works for everybody, as it's like the certifications are not specific to your story. So are more general in that way. And without getting too deep into that, I wanted to ask you, is there something like in the last 6 months, is there something that you wish you had known first before starting to scale your coaching business? Is there like an unexpected lesson learned there?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I have so many thoughts. I'll narrow it down to a couple. So I think the big one is just this element of being really concerned with like what are other people going to think on LinkedIn? What are other people perceiving about this? And I wish kind of from day one that was just not an influence. And if I could go back, I think it would be with happiness because really all like the feedback that I've received has been very positive, very, very positive. And so much of the time, like I often get messages from people I know just saying like, hey, this is so awesome. This is really neat. Like good for you for doing that. And that's the continual theme time and time again. And it's so interesting because our limiting beliefs about what we think we can do hold us back so much, as well as our fear over what other people are thinking. And it makes you realize that no one's really thinking about us as much as we think that they are. So if I could go back, it would be that the realization that it's people are here to support you. They're not here to just kind of rip apart your business from day one. So I think that's one piece. And then the other piece is just that it's an ebb and flow. And so part of me almost thinks that in the beginning, when I posted on LinkedIn, I felt like I got pretty good traction. I mainly post video content. I just find that's what I enjoy doing. That's what I was paid for with the partnership and different things. And so, yeah, feedback was really good. And then it's interesting because the algorithm I've heard time and time again is shifted. Could be that maybe my content's not resonating as much. It's a bit demoralizing because I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? And it's almost worse when things were going well and now they're not good rather than crunching hard, things aren't going great, and then boom, you take off. And so I think the reflection piece on my end is just that entrepreneurship as a whole, coaching as a whole, life as a whole is up and down. And so, it's important not to get too maybe emotionally attached to the highs and the lows, because a lot of it is outside of our control. And it's trying to figure out, maybe things need to change, maybe something's not working as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I really like that about the fears of getting it started and about like how will people think of you and how that is so not true. And I was actually just reading a book from Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk, and he explains how our fear sometimes is it's not who I think I am. It's not who you think I am, is who I
Yeah.
think you think I am. So it's kind of
Yes.
like so not true, right?
Yeah.
And I've had that same fear before
Mhm.
going public with a podcast, and then I realized that one I know actually is gonna is gonna watch this podcast. So
That helps.
uh, yeah, in a way that it
Yeah.
helps, and like even the ones that like know me are not really thinking the way I'm thinking about myself. So sometimes I could be over criticizing myself in a way, and things don't have to be perfect. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. What would you say is the biggest challenge you're now facing in scaling your coaching business?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like the scaling piece is tough. And I'm trying to think of long term, like what do I enjoy doing? How do I want to spend my time? So for example, I don't love LinkedIn overall. I don't love spending time on there. I do because, we have to, but ideally I wouldn't spend any time on there at all. But I know that's probably not a good solution. And so in terms of scaling, I think my current issues, like what I was mentioning before, but how do you move from that one-on-one client work to something that's scalable, to something that's really consistent as well? And so recently I've partnered with software company called Serve AI, and they're also based in Calgary. And so we've been incorporating developing an AI simulation into my interview coaching because something I've really found was how do you create like homework exercises, let's say, that people want to do that's really interesting and everyone's busy, everyone's struggling to find time. So the inclusion of this I think will be helpful because it'll be that real-time interview practice. But also we've designed specific scenarios so that it's not just happy, warm, friendly interviewer. We've got cold interviewers, more disagreeable, really probing, because that's what I find is where job candidates really struggle. It's totally manageable when the interviewer is nice and you're getting lots of nonverbal feedback, but when it doesn't go smoothly, whether you mess up or they're just kind of coming across as not warm, let's say, that can throw candidates off mentally so much. So I'm excited to integrate that. And then yeah, I think probably with the scaling piece is I'm looking forward to diving into the low ticket courses and maybe ones that are more premium as well, but develop that side of the learning piece because that, I mean, obviously it's easier to scale as well.
And when you're thinking like low ticket
Yeah.
courses, are you thinking like that is kind of like an entry point to then upselling to a group coaching or one-on-one
Yeah.
coaching after?
Probably, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So specifically with the asynchronous video interview one, that's more of like a crash course. You need to learn everything you need to know about AVIs before you film yours. But other ones, I think there is the potential for having it as an entry point, maybe specifically with interview mindset, that piece. I don't see a lot of content out there on how to mentally prepare for an interview, and that's what my recent masterclass was on. I see so much on using the STAR method, using, how do you research the company, all of that. But the other half of it is just how are you actually preparing your thoughts and what are you saying to yourself before, during, and after the interview to make it go more smoothly. So yeah, that's my goal for the next few months for sure.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Is there any final advice you'd like to give to other, in this case, like job interview coaches or other
Yeah.
early career coaches?
Reflecting on the past 6 months has been just really beautiful, like a really beautiful experience. And we don't know the opportunities that are coming down the road. And it's worth the time and the grind and the highs and the lows because even if it doesn't, let's say, pay off directly financially and how you'd expect, there's so many other benefits, whether it's like emotionally, mentally, just like having more confident in your abilities to do something new that you didn't expect. And so I think there can be so much doubt, so much hesitation in, I don't really know if this will work. I don't really feel ready, but it's like starting something now, because when you start it now, in 6 months' time, you'll be so glad you did. So I'd end on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Madeline. It's been a lovely episode. For anyone who wants to find you or connect with you, they can find you on your LinkedIn, Madeline Springle. You also have your
Yeah.
masteryinterview.com website linked into your LinkedIn, which anyone can connect you with you there, and also your
Mhm.
email. Is there any other way they
Yeah.
could reach out to you if they needed to?
Yeah. I got YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for Master Your Interview. So the same name across those different social platforms. Yeah, masteryourinterview.com is the best way to kind of get a sense of all the different things going on. And then would love to connect with anyone on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. That's great.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.